Welcome back, fellow travelers. I shaved today. The excitement never ends. We're reading through Letters from Backstage, The Adventures of a Touring Stage Actor, which is my book about my time on the road, and this is a big one. Chapter 12, The End of the Road, or Never Say Never Again. September 1st, 2003. The cast of the first national tour of the producers arrived in Los Angeles, much as we had in other cities. A lively, bustling gaggle of chattering show folk in hats and jackets bearing the show's logo, hovering around a luggage carousel in a baggage claim area at yet another airport. Some on cell phones, checking in with local friends, some reassuring their confused pets. Some hauling bags off the carousel, some chatting with each other, and our company manager, Mark, overseeing the whole transition. Waiting off to the side, I found myself next to a friendly guy with a clipboard who struck up a conversation. "So, you all with the producers?" "Yeah." "Cool. I hear that's good." "Oh, yeah, it is. Very funny show." "Yeah, I'm just here organizing a tour. Actually, I'm never here. There's just a part-time thing. I'm a screenwriter. In fact, I had a reading of one of my screenplays last week. A lot of interest. This guy from Sony." And as he continued, a smirk crept across my face. Yep, no question. We definitely landed in LA. Since the show is sitting down here for more than 7 months, and because LA is so big, the group dynamics would be very different here as we splintered off in our various directions from the airport. Some already live here, so they went home to their respective houses, spouses, and kids. Some had found sublets just for the run. Some opted for hotel rooms. And one even bought a house with his partner, who packed up the dogs and relocated from New York. And after everyone had dispersed, I found myself sitting once again in my very own living room. And suddenly, I wasn't on tour anymore. I blinked. Did all that really happen? What had at times felt like an eternity on the road now felt like about a week. There I was with my old familiar couch, my TV, my stuff, my walls, my neighbors, my mailbox, familiar sounds. I hauled boxes out of the garage and started putting things away, wondering if I'd dreamed the whole thing. Now, at some point, I don't know when, I'd made a decision not to continue with the show after the LA run. It was time for new adventures. I needed to get back to cultivating my TV career, and while it had certainly been a fascinating and fun trip, after nearly a year, I'd had enough with the traveling already. So now I was off the road for good. And that was a strange thing to take in. I loved being back, not having the stress of finding things like drugstores and dry cleaners. I shopped in my old familiar supermarket and cooked in my own kitchen and saw friends I hadn't seen in a year. And I was able to return to one of my favorite hobbies, skewering the city in which I live. Now, Los Angeles, for those of you who've never visited, functions in a unique and rather cockeyed manner. Scientists have pondered it for years. Maybe it's something in the bottled water. For one thing, every single resident, from Pasadena to Malibu, is either an actor or a writer, even if he's never trained or worked in those fields, and even if there's no evidence of any talent whatsoever. He merely dubs himself an actor or a writer and waits for the calls to start coming in. Also, everyone has a cell phone. This was back when not everybody did, so it was more unusual then. I believe there's a law or something. That's because everyone here is, or aspires to be, important. Being important, in fact, is what LA life is all about. If you're not important, or right on the brink of important, you might as well move. And so the important people talk importantly on their cell phones all day long, discussing in public very important things like their current weight. And when I say current, I mean their weight at that very moment. The latest episode of their favorite reality television show, or how stupid other people are. These calls are calls that can't wait. Occasionally, Los Angeles drivers are either dumb or hostile. But more often, they're both. New York drivers will honk and give you the finger if you do something stupid while driving. LA drivers will honk and give you the finger if they've done something stupid while driving. It's interesting to note that there are no great songs written about LA. That's because, to quote Gertrude Stein, there is no there. The one song that comes to mind, Randy Newman's I Love LA, is a mockery of the shallow lifestyle, but most of the natives missed that. In fact, a few years back, there was a movement to make it the city's official theme song. Here, friends make plans, and then those plans simply don't take place, because there's an unwritten understanding that all commitments are theoretical. This is what's referred to in the local parlance as, quote, penciling it in, unquote, a euphemism for making plans that both parties agree to ignore once they're made. This is done so that the participants can decline other offers because they now have plans. In fact, many things mean other things here, which is why I included this brief LA to English dictionary as part of my Kostroff Guide to Los Angeles. I'll call you tomorrow means you may or may not hear from me sometime within the next 2 weeks, depending on whether or not you can do anything for me. You were great in the show means, do you know anyone important? What have you done means, forget all this theater, do you have any real credits? Let's get together sometime means get lost. No, really, let's get together sometime means, okay, call me, but don't expect me to remember you. I'll meet you there at 7 means, if I remember to show up, it'll be around 7:45, but I may find something better to do. Dude, what's your deal means, why are you so uptight about me being a flake? These bagels taste just like New York bagels means I have never been to New York. Cold means less than 60 degrees Fahrenheit. You're so New York means I find you pushy and demanding and you walk too fast. Okay, so I pick on LA. But I don't mean any offense. After all, I've chosen to live here for the past 14 years. But for New Yorkers, LA bashing is a pastime. In fact, some of us view it as an obligation. I'm just being true to my roots. The Pantages Theater in Hollywood had been decked out like no other theater we'd played. Enormous billboards along the top of the building displayed supersized Jason Alexander's and Martin Short's in various poses. And at the corner, our glittering gold showgirls smiled, beguiling all of Hollywood Boulevard. Here they are. That was our billboard outside the Pantages. At the backstage entrance, velvet ropes were set up to keep the autograph seekers at bay. It was a new era. As we got into previews, the response was just as we'd expected, through the roof. Not only because the show is so good, which it is, but also because LA audiences love anything that features name actors. Hey, I know that guy from TV. This must be good. It's the reason I'm predicting Arnold Schwarzenegger will be successful in his run for governor. And then, footnote, yeah, I was right. As for the rest of us, well, we knew we were now in a star vehicle. And that was just fine, especially because Jason and Martin are terrifically talented and absolutely lovely guys. The enthusiastic response was well-deserved. Besides, I'm happy when an audience enjoys a show, regardless of the reason. Still, as our Nazi tenor, Daniel Herron, observed, we could be standing there naked, and these folks would say, oh, look at the hilarious way Jason and Martin are reacting to those naked people. Opening night was to be a huge event. TV cameras, celebrities, Klieg lights. In fact, they closed off several streets for the occasion. There would be a red carpet leading from the theater all the way down Argyle Street to the Palladium, where the opening night party was to be held. A shuttle would run back and forth. A special map and instructions were issued. I've never been involved in anything this glamorous. The cast planned their dressy outfits with the greatest of care. Mine was decidedly Daddy-O visits the studio, down to my black and white wingtips, Jack, Snazzapalooza. Kids, I told my castmates, mark my words, it ain't our night. It's all about Jason, Martin, Susan, and Mel. I joked that we should have buttons made for ourselves that read, yes, I'm in the show, since no one was going to recognize us. On the big night, we all arrived at the theater with our garment bags and whatever additional paraphernalia comes out of all those sexy little zip-up snap-shut cases and silky bags that women always tote along in preparation for such events. Like most men, I'm completely in the dark about what actually happens in that intriguing process, but the results are stunning. It's part of the feminine mystique. The place was a scene. As we slipped invisibly into the stage entrance around the corner, Hollywood Boulevard was abuzz with activity. Handlers with walkie-talkies directed guests to appropriate spots to collect their tickets and their VIP party passes. There was an Entertainment Tonight backdrop set up for interviews with celebrity guests. Limos vied for curb space to drop off their well-heeled passengers. Klieg lights ballyhooed across the smoggy sky. The show was received with fantastic enthusiasm. Every joke landed, every number wowed them. It was a triumphant night for all of us. And it was great to show off the results of many months of honing our performances on the road. LA loved us. As soon as the show came down, everyone hit the showers. I'd agreed to wait for the character women, Jessica, Pam, and Nancy. It took a while for them to complete all their mysterious female magic tricks, but you can't rush perfection. So I waited, all dolled up in the hallway. When they finally emerged from the dressing room, they looked fantastic. 3 visions in satin and chiffon. Together we looked like a sleazy Italian gold digger escorting rich American heiresses to a high society gala. And so we emerged into the warm May night, ready to shield our eyes from the flurry of flashbulbs and competing paparazzi, only to find an empty street covered by a long red carpet with no one on it. Everything was quiet. The important people were already at the party. We didn't care. We looked gorgeous, even if no one saw us as we strolled the 2 blocks to Sunset Boulevard and entered the Palladium. The place was beautiful. Long swaths of white fabric draped everything. There was a live band, a beautiful buffet, and people everywhere. The guest list was impressive. Steven Spielberg, Larry King, Alec Baldwin, Tim Allen, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, Christopher Guest and Jamie Lee Curtis, Carl Reiner, Rob Reiner, Sally Field, Gary Shandling, Catherine O'Hara, Goldie Hawn, Billy Crystal, Mo Gaffney, Richard Lewis, Dennis Miller, Cloris Leachman, Andrea Martin, John Lovitz, Carol Burnett, Larry David, Gary Marshall, Doris Roberts, Kate Hudson, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Jolie Fisher, Betty White, Neil Patrick Harris, David Hasselhoff, Red Buttons, Eugene Levy, Mr. Blackwell, Tracy Ullman, and of course, our Mrs. Brooks and Bancroft, all there in person to see our show. Jason, Martin, and Mel were each trapped deep within 3 respective mobs of reporters and celebrity well-wishers, where lights, cameras, and microphones competed for access. The rest of us noshed and hung out with our guests anonymously. There was a strange and awkward moment when Susan Stroman walked onto the bandstand and announced over the clatter and chatter, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present the cast of The Producers." We didn't know if we were supposed to come up or wave or what, but no one stopped eating or talking, so she quietly left the stage as the band started another number. Apparently, it wasn't even her night, and she created this thing. Very strange town. The highlight for me was running into a substantial number of friends and former associates, people with whom I'd done theme park shows and regional theater, blue-collar actors like me. They were so proud and excited to see me in such a big production, and that made my night. Only folks who know where you've come from can truly appreciate your accomplishments. With opening night behind us, we settled into our run. It was mostly uneventful, and that wasn't a bad thing at all. In fact, we all enjoyed the routine. We went to work, we did our little skit, we went home. I puttered contentedly around my apartment. It was a nice, even keel kind of time. Jason Alexander and Martin Short are constant delights to work with. Jason, for whom the word mensch was invented, is the dearest, warmest guy in show business. And Martin, well, he's a maniac. He's always trying to make us break on stage, often successfully. He cracks up Jason nearly every night. Now, I don't usually look at the audience much, but some of my onstage associates have perfected the art of surreptitiously assessing our patrons. They'll sneak looks and compare notes on who's cute, who looks bored, who's dressed funny, etc. The only thing that always seems to catch my eye is when someone arrives late or leaves during curtain call, 2 pet peeves of mine. Anyway, one night, we're in the middle of the big King of Broadway number when I noticed several of my pals quaking with suppressed laughter. Tears were streaming down cheeks as they tried to keep it together. "What's going on?" I whispered to Jessica as I danced near her. "There's a whole row of people wearing surgical masks, fifth row, left of center. Now here's how weak I am." I didn't even have to look. The mental image was enough to send me over the edge. Did someone tell them that theater air was unhealthy? And I was gone too. And then, like an idiot, I did look. Friends, I don't know who sang the chorus parts that night. It sure wasn't I. And I'm pretty sure that about half the ensemble was rendered mute at that point as well. It was a stage full of shaking shoulders. Somehow we got through the number, but I had to keep my eyes off the audience for the rest of the night and think very sad, serious thoughts. By late June, I had adjusted my planned departure date. I decided that rather than finish the LA run, I'd leave in September, our 1-year mark. I loved doing the producers, and I greatly hoped to return at some point. But a year felt like the right amount of time for now. I was ready for a long rest from the 8-show-a-week schedule. I looked forward to spending a nice quiet fall in LA, pursuing television roles, no singing, no dancing, no traveling. My nights free to hang out with friends, easy. And once I'd made the decision, I started to get excited by the idea that the end was clearly in sight. Maybe I'd tour again in a few years. For now, I was happily resolved to stay put. I was driving along Santa Monica Boulevard when my cell phone rang. Yes, I have one. Okay, you got me. The voice of Eric, my stage agent, piped through the tiny speaker. "Now here's something interesting. I got a call today. Les Miserables wants to know if you'd like to go out on tour playing Thénardier. They don't need to audition you again. They just want to know if you'll do it." Me, halfway through Eric's sentence. "Yep." You would think I would have thought about it for a moment before abruptly abandoning my well-made retirement plans, weighed some pros and cons, considered my options, but no, because friends, your narrator is quite simply a hopeless case. I love theater, and I mean, Les Miserables. How can I say no to such a juicy role in such a terrific show? Besides, since there would be no dancing and far fewer costume changes, it might be enough of a break from my strenuous, busy track at the producers, I convinced myself. A little background. I'd been in to audition for Les Mis 5 or 6 times over the years. They always said I was at the top of their list, but that neither of the actors playing the role on Broadway or on tour was leaving. When the part finally opened up for the first time in about 10 years, I was in rehearsals for the producers, so I wasn't available. This time, it just offered me the job, and the timing was perfect for both of us. So, I was leaving the show and joining a new one, just like that. I started reboxing things I'd deboxed just a few months earlier and returning them to the garage from whence they came, never a single doubt about my decision. With just 7 weeks remaining, I was particularly smug about the fact that I'd escaped ever having to go on as Roger Debris, a role for which I was the second cover. I'd learned it, but I'd always been resistant. I didn't feel I'd be any good in the part. It wasn't me the way that Max is. Fortunately, as second cover, I knew I would never go on. Gary Beach rarely missed shows, and if he did, Kevin Ligon, the first cover, was there to fill in, and he was absolutely marvelous in the role. Then, bizarrely, Kevin went out with the same exact injury I'd had, a torn calf muscle. Extra credit if you can remember the Latin name for it. In fact, both of us had torn our left calf muscles, both on the Thursday before we were to go into a principal role. He was supposed to play Franz Liebkind all the following week, just as I'd been scheduled to play Max back in San Francisco. Odd. The implications didn't hit me until Rolt clapped his hand on my shoulder and said, "Now, Michael, just so you understand, with Kevin out, you're the man. If Gary goes out, you're on." Yeah, but Gary's not going out, is he? He smirked. You never know. Rolt's been doing this a while, and he knows that anything is possible. Sure enough, he called a few days later to say that Gary Beach would be taking a day off in 2 weeks. Shit. Now it was time to get very serious about Roger Debris. Whatever resistance I'd had, it was time to get over it. I was going on. No way around it. I was called in for extra rehearsals, which I needed, and gave the part a lot more thought. Oh, I jostled myself. Hang on. I'm sure it doesn't matter. Gave the part a lot more thought. The wardrobe supervisor taught me how to walk in the high heels and a $10,000 beaded gown that Roger wears in Act 1. Land and swoosh. That's the trick. You know, in case any of you fellas ever need to walk in a $10,000 beaded gown. By the night, I felt ready. I really wasn't looking forward to it, but I figured I'd just do my best, try not to let the show down, and then put it behind me. Several friends had tickets that night. I tried to talk them out of coming. I've never played Roger before, and it's not going to be good. Come back when I'm doing my usual parts. They wouldn't listen to reason. One friend, who was dead broke, was so determined to see me go on that he bribed an usher and managed to get a seat at the last minute. That's a friend. Technically, everything went fine. I remembered the lines. I didn't trip on the dress. I faked my way through the tap dancing, and I found the lung capacity somewhere to get through the aerobic Springtime for Hitler. As always, the cast was generously supportive. But the huge surprise was this. I loved playing the part. I'd never been so wrong. My friends, it was great sharing my one-night-only performance as Roger with them, said I looked like I was having the time of my life. And I suppose they were right. Afterwards, I kind of wanted to do it again, though I knew that would never happen. But still, what a surprise to have a fun last hurrah so close to the end of my time with the show. Are you detecting a pattern? The following week, I was on again as Roger Debris. Even more fun the second time. Jason and Martin were so comfortable that they started trying to crack me up on stage. Dear Kevin even showed up limping to cheer me on, just as I had done with Fred when he debuted as Max. If "there's no people like show people" weren't such a horrible cliche, not to mention a grammatically incorrect one, I'd be tempted to use it here. My last week with the show was bliss. As you've no doubt gleaned from these reports, there's a cycle to such things. Some nights you want to burst out of your skin from the glorious, outrageous euphoria of it all. Other nights, it's like slogging through mud in a lead suit carrying an anvil on your head. But that last week, I felt light. Nothing hurt. My voice was healthy. I performed with abandon. I relished every laugh. Les Mis isn't exactly known for its zany hilarity and wacky antics, so I tried to store them up. The end was nice. I posted a goodbye note on the company call board, and it read, "Dear show business friends, when it comes to goodbyes, I'm not particularly sentimental. We have so many of them in our profession, too many to get worked up over, and happily, they're often soon followed by reunions. But I do want to say in parting, and I mean this, that it's been a privilege working with each and every one of you, and it's been an adventure as well. Together, we gave a lot of people a really funny fucking evening at the theater, and that's something these days. For those of you who'd like to stay in touch, I'd love an email every now and then. And there you have it. Off I go. Take care, everyone. Kostrov." After my final curtain, this terrific company sang to me, "Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then." And they presented me with a super duper space age backpack, a card signed by everyone, which applauds when you open it, a copy of the complete unabridged Les Miserables. Appropriately, there were no tears or attempts at closure, only hugs, pats on the back, and "see you around, Kostrov." And that's as it should be, I believe. There's a good chance I'll find myself in some company of the producers again at some later date, working with some of the same folks, and it'll be good to see them. Until then, happy trails to you till we meet again. The next morning, my alarm raised me at 6 a.m. I'd been pretty much packed for the last week. Now it was time to go. I'd be flying to Atlanta, then starting rehearsals the very next day. There would be only 2 weeks before opening night, not much time to learn a whole new show. I could hardly wait to get to work. Never say you're done with touring. You'll live to eat your words. Never say you'll never play Roger Debris. Rest assured, sooner or later, you'll don the sequin dress, maybe even twice. Never say never. That's one of the handful of lessons I've learned during my road experience of the past year. As I think about it, some others come to mind. Pace yourself. Find the mall. Make friends with your dresser. Don't be too intense. Focus on the positive, but don't freak out when you lose sight of it. It comes back. Cut yourself some slack. In fact, Cut yourself a lot of slack. See a movie, read a book, order room service. Relax during the day when you feel like it. Remember, you work a night shift. But see what's interesting and unique about each town when you can. Don't wait for people to invite you. Invite them. Go out of your way to compliment people when you like what they're doing. And as often as possible, find a way to remind yourself that people saved up their money, hired a sitter, and planned an evening around coming to the theater and seeing your show. Give them the very, very best you have to give that night. Someone may be seeing his first show. Someone else may be seeing his last. It's when I lose that connection with the people in the seats that my efforts begin to feel futile. Each performance is a conversation. The audience is the silent half of that conversation. I mustn't forget that. I think other lessons will only become clear with time and distance. Finally, never say you're at the end of the road. As it turned out, in this case, the road was merely curving and there would be more letters from Backstage to be written. Sit tight, everyone. Here we go again. And here is the wonderful cartoon that my friend Patrick Richwood drew for me to put in the book. Isn't that sweet? Surprise! I'm not getting off the road. When we next meet, I'll be starting my journey with Les Miserables. I hope you're all doing well. It's so weird to talk about people in masks and how odd that was on that night when now it's about to be the norm, I expect. So long, friends. I'll see you for the next chapter. Thank you again for joining me. Good night.